Hello and welcome. Deep beneath the surface of every world, in places where light fears to tread and sanity becomes a distant memory, two powers wage an eternal war. You might think you understand evil. You might believe you have witnessed the depths of darkness and corruption. But until you have stood between the Lady of Decay and the Queen of Spiders, until you have felt their ancient hatred wash over you like a tide of madness, you cannot truly comprehend the scope of demonic ambition. This is not a conflict of armies or nations. This is a struggle between two forces so primal, so fundamentally opposed to life itself, that their very existence tears at the fabric of reality, and you are caught in the middle, whether you know it or not. In the endless, screaming chaos of the abyss, where layers upon layers of nightmare realms spiral into infinity, two demon queens have carved out their dominions. Zuggtmoy, the demon queen of fungi, the lady of rot and decay, rules over a realm where life and death blur into something terrible and transformative. Lolth, the spider queen, the demon queen of spiders, commands legions of dark elves and spiders from her tangled domain. Both are powers beyond mortal comprehension. Both command armies that could drown worlds in blood and shadow, and both will stop at nothing to dominate the other, to prove their supremacy, to consume what the other has built and remake it in their own twisted image. You need to understand something fundamental about these beings. They are not demons in the simple sense, not mere monsters spawned from the abyss's infinite evil. They are demon lords, princes of the infinite layers, entities that have existed for eons beyond counting. Zuggtmoy has been the queen of fungi since time immemorial, her spores spreading through countless worlds, her mycological networks connecting realms you cannot even imagine. She is decay personified, the inevitable rot that claims all living things, the transformation of death into something new and terrible. Every moldy piece of bread, every mushroom pushing through forest soil, every fungal infection that claims a life carries within it a tiny fragment of her power, a microscopic connection to her consciousness. Lolth, by contrast, came to her power through a different path entirely. She was not born of the abyss, but fell into it, cast down from the divine realms above. In ages long past, she was a goddess among the elves, bearing the name Ereshni. She walked among the elven pantheon as consort to Corellin Larethian, the greatest of the elven gods, mother to both Viheron and Ilustri. But ambition consumed her, and she orchestrated a betrayal so profound that it shattered the elven race forever. The details of her treachery are recorded in the oldest elven texts, preserved in tales that even surface elves prefer not to speak aloud. Ereshni grew hungry for power, dissatisfied with her position, and began plotting against Corellin himself. She took lovers among other gods to secure allies, including Fenmerl Mestarine. She aided Griumsh, the Orcish god who was Corellin's sworn enemy, helping him wound the elven deity. She sent Maelor the Beast Lord to hunt her weakened consort. And finally, she orchestrated a full rebellion, nearly succeeding in having her own daughter Eilistri slay Corellin with a misdirected arrow. But Sehanine Moonbow, along with Hanali Selenil and Airdrie Fina, discovered the truth and thwarted her schemes. When her plot was revealed, Corellin's judgment was absolute. Arishni was transformed into a spider-like demon and cast into the abyss. Her son Viheron was exiled for his complicity. Eilistri, though innocent, chose to follow her mother and brother into darkness, believing the drow who would arise from this tragedy would need her light. The elves Arishni had corrupted during her long campaign of manipulation were marked with ebony skin and driven underground, becoming the drow. Where others might have perished in exile, Lolth thrived. She conquered a layer of the abyss and transformed it into the Demonweb pits, and over millennia, she clawed her way back to divinity, becoming an intermediate goddess who rules her drow with absolute authority. The nature of their power differs fundamentally, and this difference fuels much of their rivalry. Zuggtmoy's strength comes from inevitability. She is entropy itself, the force that breaks down all complex systems into simpler forms. Her fungi consume dead matter and transform it, creating vast networks of mycelium that connect forests, jungles, and even entire ecosystems. She does not need to scheme or plot in the way other demon lords do. She simply waits. Everything dies eventually. Everything decays. And when it does, she is there, ready to claim it, to transform it, to make it part of her growing kingdom. Her patience is legendary among those who study demonology. She will wait centuries for a single opportunity, growing her spores through soil and wood, creating networks that span entire continents, all building toward a moment when she can strike and claim an entire realm in a single, catastrophic bloom. Lolth's power, however, is built on control and manipulation. She is the ultimate schemer, the mistress of plots within plots, the queen who sees every possibility and moves to exploit them all. Her mind works on multiple levels simultaneously, each thought branching into possibilities like threads in her web. She does not wait for things to come to her. She reaches out, she manipulates, she corrupts. She transforms willing servants into extensions of her will. The drow, the dark elves who worship her, are not merely her followers. They are her instruments, her tools, her weapons deployed across countless worlds. Through them, she extends her influence far beyond the abyss, establishing temples and strongholds in the Underdark, creating vast civilizations that serve her purposes even as they believe themselves independent. Their domains reflect these fundamental differences. Zuggtmoy's realm of Shedakla, the 222nd layer of the abyss, is a place of overwhelming life and death intertwined. But Zuggtmoy does not rule Shedakla alone. She shares this layer with Juablix, the Faceless Lord, a demon prince of oozes and slimes. The layer is divided between them, with Zugt controlling the surface regions, while Juablix claims the underground caverns. This uneasy coexistence has persisted for eons, another dimension to the eternal wars of the abyss. The border between their territories remains contested, with fungal growths attempting to infiltrate the slime pits, while acidic oozes dissolve the edges of Zuggtmoy's fungal forests. Imagine, if you can, the surface of Shedakla where Zuggtmoy reigns. Every surface writhes with fungal growth. Trees made entirely of shelf fungi tower hundreds of feet into a perpetual twilight sky. The ground itself pulses with mycological networks, each step you take sending ripples through a vast, interconnected organism that spans vast swaths of the layer. Rivers of spores flow like water, carrying genetic information and nutrients between different regions of the realm. The air is thick with particles that enter your lungs with every breath, beginning the slow process of transformation, even as you struggle to comprehend your surroundings. The structures in Shedakla grow rather than being built. Zuggtmoy's palace, if it can be called that, is a massive fruiting body that rises from the center of her territory like a mountain of pale flesh. Its chambers grow and shrink according to her will, walls of living tissue that respond to thought and desire. Her throne is not carved from stone, but grown from the accumulated mass of countless fungal species, each one contributing its own properties to create something that exists partially in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Those who approach her court, those few mortals or demons foolish or desperate enough to seek audience with the Lady of Decay, report that reality itself seems less stable near her presence, as if the boundaries between dimensions are as permeable as the membrane of a mushroom cap. Lolth's demonweb pits present a completely different horror. Her realm exists as layer 66 of the abyss, though its nature transcends simple layer classification. The pits themselves consist of portals linked by strands of web, each portal leading to a different plane, a different world, a different reality. At what appears to be the center of this vast construction sits Lolth's palace. The structure takes various forms depending on the observer and the time, but is most commonly described as a massive iron fortress shaped like a spider. The palace is mobile, constantly shifting position within the web, making it nearly impossible for anyone to approach without her knowledge or permission. The web extends in all directions, and embedded in its strands are entire worlds. These are places Lolth has conquered or corrupted, realities she has pulled into her domain and transformed into extensions of her will. Some contain entire civilizations of drow dark elves who build their cities on platforms of web, suspended over infinite voids. Others are prisons, holding demons or even deities she has captured and wrapped in silk for later consumption or torture. Still others are experiments, realities she has altered to test different approaches to corruption and control. Each world in the web serves a purpose in her grand design, each one a component in a machine so complex that even other demon lords struggle to comprehend its full scope. The inhabitants of these realms reflect their queen's natures. Zuggtmoy's servants are fungal creatures of every description. Myconids, the peaceful mushroom folk of the Underdark, exist in twisted forms in her service, transformed into aggressive spore warriors that spread her influence through violence rather than symbiosis. Vegapygmies, those strange plant creatures born from russet mold infections, serve her in vast numbers. Their simple minds perfectly suited to following her will, without question or hesitation. Shambling mounds and other plant creatures warped by fungal infections patrol her realm. While at her court, greater servants made from concentrated spore colonies take forms that hurt to perceive, their bodies constantly shifting and changing as different fungal species compete for dominance within the same physical space. Lolth's servants are equally diverse, but bound by themes of arachnids and dark elves. Drow priestesses serve as her most devoted followers, each one a conduit for her divine power. She grants them spells and abilities, rewards their devotion with power, and demands absolute loyalty in return. The Yachlal, her handmaiden demons, serve as enforcers and messengers, creatures that can assume the form of drow women or reveal their true nature as melting masses of eyes and tentacles. Driders, the cursed drow who failed Lolth's tests, serve as soldiers and hunters. The transformation into a Drider is not arbitrary punishment, but the result of failing the Chwidridera, the test of the Drider. One of 9 trials Lolth imposes on her followers. The metamorphosis is horrific, lasting at least 12 hours of excruciating pain as the victim's body is reshaped into a spider-centaur hybrid. These creatures retain their intelligence and memories, making them tragically aware of what they have lost, driven by hunger and the desperate, often futile hope that they might somehow redeem themselves in their goddess's eyes. And spiders of every size and type, from tiny venomous creatures to monsters large enough to prey on dragons, all answer to her call. All serve as extensions of her will. The fundamental conflict between these two demon queens arises from their competing visions of corruption and their overlapping domains of influence. Both seek to corrupt the natural world, to transform living things into servants of their will, but their methods and goals differ dramatically. Zuggtmoy wants to dissolve boundaries between life and death, to create a universe where everything exists in a state of perpetual transformation, breaking down and building up in an endless cycle she controls. Lolth wants hierarchies of power, vast civilizations organized according to strict rules of dominance and submission, with herself at the absolute top of the pyramid. These visions cannot coexist. Where Zuggtmoy would see spontaneous growth and decay, Lolth demands order and control. Where Lolth would build empires, Zuggtmoy would reduce them to mulch and grow something new from the remains. Their rivalry has existed for millennia, and the timeline of their conflict reveals shifting power dynamics. For much of their eternal struggle, Lolth held advantages through her divine status and vast drow civilization. But in the year 1384 of Dale Reckoning, Zuggtmoy achieved something remarkable. She ascended to full godhood, claiming the divine realm and followers of Monder, an ancient deity of rot and corruption. The timing suggests years of careful planning, as Lolth had been masquerading as Monder to claim his worshippers for herself. When Zuggtmoy seized that which Lolth had been working to control, the consequence was immediate and devastating. The Spider Queen, who had risen to greater deity status, was reduced to that of an intermediate goddess. This shift in cosmic power has intensified their rivalry to new heights. Given what we know of Lolth's vengeful nature and her history of holding grudges for millennia, this loss would not simply be accepted. A goddess who spent ages clawing her way back to divinity after her fall, who rebuilt her power through patience and manipulation, would view this loss as an unforgivable insult. The war between them, already ancient and bitter, has entered a new phase where the stakes are higher than ever before. Regardless of the specific origins of their conflict, it has defined both of them. Every action Zuggtmoy takes, every expansion of her fungal networks, every corruption of a new world, happens with the knowledge that Lolth watches and plans her response. Every scheme Lolth weaves, every drow city she establishes, every conspiracy she orchestrates, happens with the understanding that Zuggtmoy waits patiently for an opportunity to infect and corrupt everything she has built. They are locked in a dance of mutual destruction, each seeking the other's downfall, neither able to achieve it completely. The scope of their conflict extends far beyond the abyss. On the material plane, in the Underdark beneath countless worlds, their followers clash constantly. Drow cities dedicated to Lolth stand as bastions of spider-worshipping civilization in the deep places of the earth. But in the depths beneath even those cities, in caves and tunnels too deep for normal habitation, Zuggtmoy's fungi grow. Her spores infiltrate drow cities, carried on air currents or on the bodies of slaves and prisoners. Once established, they grow slowly, patiently, creating networks that can persist for years or even centuries before suddenly blooming in a catastrophic release of transformative spores that can convert an entire city into a fungal garden overnight. The drow know this threat intimately. Every drow city maintains specialized units of scouts and exterminators who search constantly for signs of fungal infection. They burn any growth they find, use acid and fire and divine magic to purge it completely, knowing that even a single surviving spore could mean the eventual doom of their entire civilization. But Zuggtmoy is patient beyond mortal understanding. She learns from every purge, adapts her spores to resist their countermeasures, creates new strains that lie dormant longer or spread through vectors they have not yet discovered. It is a war of attrition that spans generations, and the fungi never tire never lose hope, never stop growing. You stand now at the threshold of understanding. You have begun to glimpse the scope of this conflict, the age of this rivalry, the depth of hatred between two beings who have existed since before your world likely came into being. In the sections that follow, we will explore how this rivalry manifests in specific ways. We will examine their competition for the souls and service of the Drow race. We will delve into the nature of their realms in the abyss and how the eternal war between them shapes the infinite layers. We will investigate their mortal cults and the conflicts that erupt when followers of fungi meet worshippers of spiders. And we will consider what this all means for you, for mortals who find themselves caught between two forces neither of which cares for your survival, except as it serves their eternal struggle for supremacy. The war between Zuggtmoy and Lolth is not merely a conflict between two powerful entities. It is a fundamental clash of philosophies about the nature of corruption, power, and existence itself. And in that clash, entire worlds burn. Section 2. The Drow Connection, Lolth's Empire, and Zuggtmoy's Infiltration. The relationship between Lolth and the Drow represents perhaps the most complete and absolute form of divine control ever established in the multiverse. When you think of the Dark Elves, you must understand that they are not simply a race that worships Lolth. They are her creation, her property, her instruments shaped over thousands of years of selective pressure and divine manipulation. Every aspect of Drow society reflects her will. Every custom, every hierarchy, every law carved into the foundations of their cities exists because it serves her purposes. The Drow do not choose to worship the Spider Queen. For most of them, the concept of choice in this matter is as foreign as the surface sun they fled millennia ago. The transformation of the elves into Drow happened during an event that would become known as the Descent, though the Drow themselves remember it differently, some calling it the First Exodus. You have heard, perhaps, sanitized versions of this story, tales of a rebellion among the elves and a goddess who fell from grace. But the truth is far more terrible and far more complete. Arishni, the goddess who would become Lolth, orchestrated a campaign of corruption that lasted generations. She whispered to certain elves about power, about the weakness of mercy, about the strength that comes from embracing cruelty and domination. She found those among the surface elves who resented their position, who desired more than what their society offered, who harbored darkness in their hearts. Her corruption was not sudden or violent. It was gradual, generational, built on small compromises that led to larger ones. Families she corrupted past their twisted values to their children. Communities she influenced became increasingly isolated from the broader elven civilization. Customs she introduced, seemingly harmless at first, normalized behaviors that would have horrified earlier generations. By the time the other elven gods realized what was happening, by the time they understood the scope of her betrayal, Entire cities of elves had fallen under her influence. The war that followed nearly destroyed the elven race entirely. When the uncorrupted elves finally drove out Ereshni and her followers, when Corellin used divine magic to transform those corrupted elves into something that could never pass for their former kin, they believed they had solved the problem. The dark elves, now marked by their ebony skin and white hair, fled into the depths of the earth. The surface elves thought they would perish in the Underdark, that harsh realm of monsters and darkness. They were wrong. Under Lolth's guidance, the newly transformed drow not only survived, but built one of the most terrifying civilizations the multiverse has ever known. Drow society is built on a foundation of cruelty, deception, and absolute devotion to Lolth. Their cities, carved into massive caverns deep beneath the surface world, represent architectural achievements that would astound even the greatest surface builders. Menzoberranzan, the city of spiders, stands as perhaps the greatest example of drow civilization. Founded in the year -3917 of Dale Reckoning, it has endured for over 5,000 years. Its towers and stalactite palaces glow with magical light, providing illumination without the hated brightness of the sun. Bridges of spider silk, stronger than steel, connect different levels of the city, and everywhere, the symbols of Lolth dominate. Spider motifs appear in every building, every decoration, every piece of clothing. The priestesses of Lolth rule absolutely, their power backed by divine magic and the knowledge that failure to obey them means not only death, but the eternal torment of your soul in the Demonweb pits. The structure of drow society reflects Lolth's own nature. She demands competition, conflict, and constant struggle for power. Drow noble houses fight endlessly for position and influence, using assassination, sabotage, and open warfare when they believe they can succeed without drawing too much attention from the ruling council. But these conflicts must follow certain rules. The priestesses of Lolth maintain order through fear and divine authority. A house that becomes too powerful, too threatening to the established hierarchy, will find itself targeted by the very goddess they worship. Lolth does not want stability. She wants controlled chaos, a society where everyone fights for advancement, but no one can rise high enough to threaten her absolute dominance. Males in drow society occupy a subordinate position by divine mandate. Lolth despises male gods, male authority, male power of any kind. Her own fall came partly from conflicts with male deities in the elven pantheon, and she has never forgiven or forgot that struggle. In drow cities, males serve as soldiers, wizards, artisans, and workers, but they can never hold ultimate power. The priestesses stand above them always, and any male who attempts to challenge this order finds himself transformed into a Drider, a fate considered worse than death. The Drider transformation represents Lolth's ultimate punishment and her twisted sense of humor. Those who fail her do not die. They are remade, transformed into half spider, half drow creatures that retain their intelligence and memory, but exist forever as symbols of failure and objects of disgust to their former peers. This is the empire that Zuggtmoy seeks to infiltrate and corrupt. From her perspective, looking at these ordered cities, these structured hierarchies, these civilizations that persist for thousands of years in the hostile environment of the Underdark, she must see artificial constructs maintained through force of will and divine power. She sees complexity that defies the natural order of decay and renewal. And she sees an opportunity to prove her superiority by corrupting what Lolth has spent millennia building. The methods Zuggtmoy uses to infiltrate drow society are as patient and insidious as the growth of mold on forgotten food. She does not launch obvious attacks or send fungal armies to assault drow cities. Such approaches would fail against the considerable defensive capabilities of a civilization that has survived in the Underdark for thousands of years. Instead, she uses spores, those microscopic particles that can travel on air currents, on water, on the bodies of creatures moving through the Underdark. A single spore, invisible to the naked eye, enters a drow city carried on the clothing of a slave or merchant. It settles into a crack in the stone, finds moisture, and begins to grow. The growth is imperceptibly slow at first. A tiny thread of mycelium extends through the stone, drawing nutrients from organic matter embedded in the rock. It grows for years, perhaps decades, creating a network beneath the city that no one suspects. More spores arrive, settle, begin their own growth. The networks connect, creating a massive mycological structure beneath the drow city that can persist for a century or more before producing visible fruiting bodies. And then, on a day chosen according to calculations beyond mortal comprehension, the fungi bloom. The initial bloom is always localized, contained to a single area or even a single building. Zuggtmoy has learned through millennia of trial and error that large-scale attacks trigger massive responses from drow defenders, but a small bloom, quickly contained, might be written off as a natural fungal intrusion rather than evidence of a vast network beneath the entire city. The drow respond with fire and acid, purging the visible growth, but they cannot see the mycological network beneath their feet, the connections that still persist, already preparing for the next bloom. Some of Zuggtmoy's most successful infiltrations have come through corrupting creatures that drow use as slaves or livestock. The Underdark contains many creatures that drow capture and use for various purposes. Rithay, those cattle-like creatures adapted to underground life, provide food and leather. Various humanoid slaves perform labor too dangerous or degrading for drow to undertake themselves. Zuggtmoy's spores can infect these creatures, growing within their bodies, changing them slowly from within. An infected slave might work for years before showing symptoms, all the while spreading spores throughout the city where they labor. When the infection finally becomes obvious, when the transformation reaches its final stage, it may be too late to prevent a larger outbreak. The Temple of Elemental Evil represents one of Zuggtmoy's most ambitious attempts to establish a foothold in a location where she could directly threaten Lolth's interests. This temple, located in the Flannis region of the world of Oerth, served as a focal point for the worship of elemental evil in all its forms. Zuggtmoy worked to establish her own presence within its structure, using it as a base from which to extend her influence into the surrounding regions and the Underdark below. The connection between the temple and both demon queens becomes evident when you examine the career of certain servants who operated there. Lolth the Beautiful, a cleric who established multiple shrines in the region, demonstrated knowledge of both fungal corruption and the ways of the Underdark that suggests contact with followers of both demon queens. The temple's location above Underdark passages where Drow territories existed meant any major operation there would inevitably draw Lolth's attention. Whether Zuggtmoy intended this or simply accepted it as an unavoidable consequence of her plans remains a subject of debate among scholars. But the result was clear. The temple became a point where the interests of both demon queens intersected, and where their followers likely came into conflict in the shadows beneath the more obvious threats. The plan ultimately failed when adventurers assaulted the temple and disrupted the operations there. But the attempt itself revealed the scope of Zuggtmoy's ambitions. She was willing to invest significant resources to establish complex operations requiring decades of preparation, if it meant gaining advantages in her eternal war with the Spider Queen. Conflicts between followers of the two demon queens occur with disturbing regularity in the deeper regions of the Underdark. Drow cities face ongoing threats from fungal incursions, attacks that come not from organized armies, but from the patient, persistent growth of contaminated ecosystems. When a major outbreak occurs, when a section of a Drow city succumbs to sudden fungal transformation, the response is brutal and absolute. Entire districts are burned. Every resident who might have been exposed is executed. Stones are melted with acid to ensure no spore survives. This response itself damages Drow civilization, creating instability and fear that serves Zuggtmoy's purposes even when her direct attacks fail. The competition extends beyond simple attacks and defense. Both demon queens seek to corrupt surface races and bring them into their service. And when their operations overlap, conflict is inevitable. Zuggtmoy has successfully established fungal cults in various surface communities, groups of humanoids who worship her and work to spread her spores. These cults sometimes come into contact with Drow raiding parties or with surface agents working on behalf of Lolth. The resulting conflicts can be spectacularly destructive, with both sides willing to sacrifice their mortal servants completely if it means hindering their rivals' plans. In the forests of the surface world, where myconid colonies exist in relative peace, Lolth's agents sometimes hunt them for sport, or to prevent Zuggtmoy from recruiting them. The myconids, those mushroom folk who prefer peaceful coexistence with other creatures, make natural servants for Zuggtmoy. If she can convince or compel them to abandon their pacifistic ways, drow hunting parties specifically target myconid circles that show signs of corruption by the demon queen of fungi, exterminating them before they can become weapons against drow interests. This hunting has created a complicated relationship between myconids and drow, with both species viewing each other with suspicion and fear. The struggle for control of specific Underdark territories provides another arena for their conflict. Both demon queens desire control of crucial passages and important locations in the deep earth, a cave system that provides the only practical route between two regions might find itself contested, with Zuggtmoy's fungi growing throughout its passages, while drow scouts try desperately to maintain roots through the obstruction. A cavern containing rare minerals or magical resources might become the site of a proxy war between fungal creatures and drow soldiers, each side trying to deny the other access while securing it for themselves. Zuggtmoy has developed specific strains of fungi designed to counter drow physiology and magic. The drow possess natural resistance to many toxins and magical effects, advantages granted by millennia of Lolth's manipulation of their bloodline. But Zuggtmoy is patient and adaptive. She has created spores that specifically target drow immune systems, that thrive in the magical radiation that suffuses drow cities, that resist the fire, and acid the drow favor for purging infestations. Each new strain represents thousands of years of experimentation, of failed attempts and gradual refinement, building toward fungi that can overcome even Lolth's most carefully designed defenses. Lolth responds with divine intervention and selective breeding. She grants her priestesses spells specifically designed to detect and destroy fungal intrusions. She shapes the drow bloodline to be more resistant to spore infection with each generation. She sends her Yachlal demons to hunt down and destroy the most dangerous fungal creatures in territories she claims. And she plots, always plots, seeking ways to strike back at Zuggtmoy's realm, to damage the demon queen of fungi in ways that will take centuries to repair. The conflict shapes both demon queens in fundamental ways. Lolth's paranoia and demand for absolute control over the drow stems partly from her need to maintain unity against external threats like Zuggtmoy. If drow society fractured, if different cities pursued completely independent goals, they would be more vulnerable to fungal infiltration. Her insistence on the superiority of priestesses over other classes ensures that every drow city has defenders capable of channeling divine power against supernatural threats. Her transformation of failed drow into driders serves partly as punishment, but also as a warning about the importance of vigilance and competence in defending against threats to her empire. Zuggtmoy's focus on creating diverse fungal species, on developing spores that can survive in almost any environment, on building vast mycological networks that can persist for centuries, all reflect her adaptation to fighting an enemy as prepared and powerful as Lolth. She has learned that patience and persistence eventually overcome even the most formidable defenses. She has developed strategies that span millennia, accepting that any particular attack will likely fail, but that the cumulative effect of thousands of attacks, each one teaching her something new about drow defenses, will eventually provide the knowledge needed for a truly catastrophic strike. You walk through the Underdark now with this knowledge, understanding that the stone beneath your feet might conceal fungal networks older than human civilization. Every cave, every tunnel, every passage could be a battlefield in this war between demon queens. The drow cities you encounter are fortresses besieged by an enemy so patient that the siege might last 10,000 years. And the fungi you see growing in the darkness might be scouts, advance elements of an invasion that could consume everything you know. The Drow Empire stands as Lolth's greatest achievement and her greatest vulnerability. Through the Dark Elves, she extends her power across countless worlds, establishing civilizations that worship her and serve her purposes. But those same civilizations, those concentrations of her power and influence, make perfect targets for her rivals. And none of her rivals has proven more persistent, more patient, or more dangerous than Zuggtmoy, the demon queen of fungi, who sees in every drow city an opportunity to prove that decay and transformation will eventually claim even the Spider Queen's carefully ordered domains. Section 3. The Abyss and the Web of Rivalry. The Abyss defies mortal comprehension in ways that go beyond simple descriptions of horror or chaos. You might imagine it as a place, a location you could travel to and explore. But the Abyss is not a place in any conventional sense. It is an infinite regression of nightmare realities, each layer a complete universe unto itself, each one ruled by different laws of physics and metaphysics. The number of layers is literally infinite. Scholars who have studied the Abyss for their entire lives, who have devoted centuries to cataloging and understanding its nature, can only agree on one thing. For every layer they discover and document, infinite more layers exist beyond their ability to perceive or reach. Within this endless expanse of malevolent chaos, certain demon lords have claimed specific layers as their domains. These are not conquests in the traditional sense, not territories seized through military force and held through occupation. A demon lord's lair is an extension of their essential nature, a physical manifestation of their particular brand of evil made real. The lair shapes the demon lord, Even as the demon lord shapes the layer, they exist in symbiosis, each one impossible without the other, locked together in a relationship that transcends simple ownership. Zuggtmoy rules the 222nd layer of the abyss, the realm known as Shedakla. This layer exists as a testament to the power of fungal life, to the inevitability of decay, to the beauty and horror of transformation. When you first arrive in Shedakla, assuming you survive the journey through the abyss to reach it, your senses struggle to process what they perceive. The sky, if it can be called that, glows with a sickly phosphorescence. Vast clouds of spores drift through the air like living fog, each cloud containing billions upon billions of particles seeking living tissue to colonize. The light comes from bioluminescent fungi that grow everywhere, coating every surface with their pale radiance. The landscape consists entirely of fungal matter in various stages of growth and decay. What appear to be mountains in the distance are actually massive puffballs, some growing to heights of several miles. When they release their spores, the resulting cloud can cover hundreds of square miles, transforming everything it touches. Rivers flow through the landscape, but they do not carry water. They carry liquid spores, thick suspensions of genetic material flowing from higher elevations to lower ones, seeding new growth wherever they touch. The sound of these rivers is distinct, a wet rustling that seems to whisper promises of transformation and change. The forests of Shedakla grow from the remains of previous forests. Massive shelf fungi tower overhead, their caps spreading wide to catch falling spores from the air. Beneath them, older growth decays, breaking down into nutrient-rich substrate that feeds the new growth above. The cycle is visible everywhere you look. Birth and death and rebirth, all happening simultaneously, all connected through vast networks of mycelium that pulse with a kind of intelligence. These networks extend throughout vast portions of the layer, connecting countless fungi to create a consciousness distributed across incomprehensible numbers of individual organisms. But Zuggtmoy's control of Shedakla is not absolute. She shares this layer with Zuggtmoy, the faceless lord, demon prince of oozes and slimes. The division between their territories creates another dimension of conflict within an already hostile realm. Zuggtmoy claims the surface regions, where her fungal forests and spore clouds dominate. Zuggtmoy rules the underground, vast caverns filled with pools of acidic slime and rivers of protoplasmic horror. The border between their domains shifts constantly. Neither demon lord strong enough to claim the entire layer, but neither willing to cede territory to the other. This arrangement suggests a stalemate that has persisted for eons, each demon lord powerful enough to defend their territory, but unable to conquer their neighbors. The implications are significant for understanding Zuggtmoy's broader conflicts. If she cannot fully dominate even the layer she ostensibly rules, her ambitions against Lolth must rely on strategy and patience, rather than overwhelming force. This could explain her preference for slow, methodical infiltration over direct assault. Zuggtmoy's palace stands in the regions she controls most completely, though its exact location shifts as the fungal landscape grows and changes. The structure grows continuously, expanding and contracting according to her will and the needs of the moment. Its walls are composed of living tissue, pale white mushroom flesh that feels warm and slightly damp to the touch. The texture is unsettling, neither quite plant nor animal, existing in some category that your mind struggles to classify. Rooms within the palace appear and disappear as needed. A corridor you walk through might seal itself behind you, the walls growing together to create a seamless barrier. Chambers sprout from the main structure like buds, growing to full size in a matter of hours. The throne room defies conventional architecture. It exists simultaneously in multiple dimensions, its true size and shape impossible to determine from any single perspective. Zuggtmoy herself sits upon a throne grown from compressed layers of fungal tissue representing thousands of different species. Each layer adds its own properties to the whole. Some layers possess hallucinogenic properties that cause visitors to experience visions. Others secrete enzymes that begin breaking down organic matter at the molecular level. Still others exist partially out of phase with normal reality, causing parts of the throne to appear translucent or to shift position when viewed from different angles. The demon queen of fungi appears as a massive fungal organism, roughly humanoid in shape. Her body stands 12 feet tall, composed of pale mushroom flesh that constantly releases spores into the surrounding air. Her face, if she chooses to manifest one, shifts and changes as different fungal species compete for dominance in its structure. Sometimes she appears almost beautiful, with features that might pass for feminine by mortal standards. Other times her face dissolves into a mass of sporangia and mycological structures that hurt to perceive directly. Her true form transcends any single physical manifestation. She is the totality of fungal life across infinite realities. And what you see when you look at her is merely the tiny fraction of her consciousness that has chosen to focus on your existence. Her court consists of fungal creatures from across the multiverse. Myconid sovereigns stand as advisors, though these are not the peaceful mushroom folk found in the underdark of the material plane. These appear to be warrior philosophers, Myconids who have embraced Zuggtmoy's vision of transformation through force rather than symbiosis. Greater demons of fungal nature serve as generals and champions. These creatures stand 9 feet tall, their bodies composed of advanced fungal tissue that can reshape itself at will. They can extend tendrils to attack at range, create clouds of spores that kill or transform, or simply overwhelm enemies with raw physical strength augmented by abyssal power. Vegapygmies swarm through the palace in vast numbers, performing tasks too menial for more powerful servants. These simple creatures, born from russet mold infections, serve perfectly as disposable troops and laborers. Zuggtmoy can create them in unlimited numbers, as long as she has organic matter to infect, making them ideal for tasks where casualties are expected or even desired. Their lack of individual identity makes them perfect servants for a being who sees all fungal life as extensions of her consciousness. But the most disturbing servants in Zuggtmoy's court are those who were once mortal. Humanoids who traveled to Shedakla and were captured, or who pledged themselves to the demon queen of fungi, find themselves slowly transformed. The process is gradual enough that they remain conscious throughout, aware of every stage as their flesh is replaced with fungal tissue. As their thoughts are slowly subsumed into the greater mycological network that Zuggtmoy commands, these half-transformed servants retain enough of their former selves to speak and reason. But their loyalty to Zuggtmoy appears absolute, presumably guaranteed by the fungal colonies growing through their brains. The layer itself serves as both fortress and laboratory for Zuggtmoy's endless experiments. She creates new fungal species constantly, testing different combinations of traits and abilities. Some experiments are designed to be weapons, spores that can kill specific creatures or overcome particular defenses. Others are meant to transform environments, converting hostile territories into fungal gardens. Still others seem to serve purely as research. Zuggtmoy exploring the theoretical limits of what fungal life can accomplish when freed from the constraints of natural selection and given access to abyssal energies. Lolth's realm presents a completely different form of horror. The demon web pits exist as layer 66 of the abyss, though some scholars argue its nature transcends simple layer classification. The realm consists of portals bound together by strands of spider silk stronger than adamantine. These webs stretch in all directions, each strand a connection between different realities. The portals themselves vary in size from tiny openings, barely large enough for a spider to crawl through, to massive gates that could accommodate armies. The structure of the demon web pits reflects Lolth's nature as the ultimate schemer and manipulator. Every strand connects to every other strand through complex networks of intersections. No single point controls access to the entire web. Instead, power is distributed throughout the structure, with key nexus points serving as hubs where multiple major strands meet. These nexus points are defended by powerful demons and drow who have proven their loyalty beyond doubt. But even they do not know the full extent of the web or how all its connections function. Only Lolth herself comprehends the complete structure, and she uses this knowledge to control traffic through her realm absolutely. Embedded within the web are entire worlds, realities that Lolth has conquered or corrupted and pulled into her domain. These worlds exist as bubbles of stable space-time held in place by the web's structure. Some contain drow civilizations, dark elf cities built on platforms of silk, suspended over infinite voids. The inhabitants of these cities may not even realize they exist within the abyss, believing themselves to be in the underdark of their home plane. Based on what we know of Lolth's methods, she likely maintains this illusion carefully, allowing them to believe what they wish as long as they serve her purposes. Other captured worlds serve as prisons. Lolth has defeated or captured numerous enemies over her long existence, and rather than simply destroying them, she often chooses to imprison them within her web. These beings, whether demon lords, deities, or mortal heroes, powerful enough to threaten her interests, find themselves wrapped in silk that suppresses their powers and suspended in pocket dimensions designed to prevent escape. Some may have hung in her web for thousands of years, kept alive by the web's magic, preserved for potential future use, or simply to prove that Lolth never forgets those who oppose her. Still, other worlds serve as experiments. Lolth constantly tests new approaches to corruption and control, and her captive realities provide perfect laboratories. She might take a world and eliminate all males, observing how the society adapts. Or she might introduce spider-based diseases that slowly transform the population into arachnid hybrids. These experiments can last for centuries, with Lolth observing the results and learning from both successes and failures. The knowledge gained likely informs her approach to corrupting new civilizations and strengthening her control over existing ones. Lolth's palace sits at what appears to be the center of the Demonweb pits, though center is a relative term in a realm of such vast and shifting extent. The palace is mobile, capable of moving through the web, repositioning itself as strategic or whimsical needs dictate. The structure is woven entirely from spider silk, but this is no ordinary silk. It has been infused with abyssal energies and Lolth's divine power, making it harder than diamond and more resilient than any metal. The walls shimmer with iridescent colors, patterns that shift and change as you observe them, creating optical illusions that can disorient or entrance those not prepared for their effects. The interior of the palace is a maze of corridors and chambers connected by silk bridges spanning vast, empty spaces. Some rooms exist in conventional, three-dimensional space. Others are woven to connect dimensions in ways that defy normal geometry, with doorways leading to places that should be impossible to reach from your current location. The palace serves simultaneously as throne room, fortress, temple, and monument to Lolth's power. Every surface bears decorations that glorify the Spider Queen, depictions of her conquests and triumphs woven into the silk itself. Lolth's throne room is the heart of her power. The throne itself has been described as carved from a single massive gemstone that pulses with inner light. Spider silk binds the throne to the floor and walls, creating a web that extends throughout the entire chamber. Lolth sits upon this throne in her divine form, a massive spider with the torso of a dark elf woman rising from where the spider's head would normally be. In this form, she stands 20 feet tall, her spider body even larger, capable of filling the entire throne room if she chooses to reveal her full size. Her court consists of the most powerful servants she has accumulated over millennia of rule. Yachlal demons serve as her handmaidens and enforcers, shape-shifting creatures that can appear as drow women or reveal their true forms as masses of melting flesh, tentacles, and eyes. These greater demons possess intelligence and power that would make them demon lords in their own right if they served anyone but Lolth. Their absolute loyalty comes not from fear, but from genuine devotion, a fanatical worship that borders on love, though love twisted by demonic nature into something possessive and cruel. Drow priestesses from across the multiverse compete for the honor of serving in Lolth's court. These are the most powerful, most devoted, most successful of all her mortal servants, dark elves who have proven themselves through centuries of service and ruthless elimination of rivals. They stand as living proof of Lolth's power to reward faithful servants, each one granted abilities and authority far beyond what any mortal should possess. But even in Lolth's immediate presence, even within her court, they continue their schemes and plots, competing for her favor, seeking any advantage that might elevate them above their peers. Driders patrol the palace and the nearby web, serving as guards and hunters. These cursed drow spider hybrids retain their intelligence and memories from before their transformation, making them uniquely suited to understanding and countering threats from other drow, or from surface worlders who might somehow reach the demon web pits. Their desperation to redeem themselves in Lolth's eyes makes them fanatically loyal and willing to undertake any task, no matter how dangerous or degrading. Spiders of every description infest the palace and the web beyond. Tiny spiders the size of coins scurry along the silk strands, serving as scouts and spies, their simple consciousnesses linked to Lolth's awareness. Larger spiders the size of dogs or horses patrol key locations, attacking intruders on sight. And massive spiders the size of houses guard the most critical points. Creatures with intelligence approaching that of demons and loyalty absolute to the Spider Queen. These greater spiders are not natural creatures, but beings Lolth has created specifically to serve her purposes, combining arachnid form with demonic power. The conflict between Zuggtmoy's fungal realm and Lolth's web-spanning domain manifests in ways both subtle and catastrophic. The boundaries between layers in the abyss are not fixed or clearly defined. One layer bleeds into another, areas of overlap where two demon lords' powers conflict and combine in unpredictable ways. Where Shedakla and the demon web pits come near each other In the infinite chaos of the abyss, contested zones emerge where fungal growths attempt to colonize spider silk strands, while the web structure tries to contain and isolate the fungal intrusions. In these border regions, you can see the war between the demon queens made manifest. Fungal growths coat portions of the web, their mycological networks trying to break down the silk and convert it into substrate for new growth. But the silk resists, its magical properties making it immune to normal decomposition. So the fungi adapt, creating new enzymes and acids specifically designed to attack enchanted materials. And the silk responds, Lolth continuously reinforcing and adapting her web structure to resist the latest fungal innovations. The battles in these regions involve armies of servants from both demon queens. Fungal creatures march along the web strands, seeking weak points where they can establish footholds. Spiders and drow counterattack, burning the fungi with divine fire, cutting away infected sections of web before the growth can spread. But neither side can achieve lasting victory. Any territory gained is temporary, soon lost to a counteroffensive, or simply abandoned when more strategic concerns take priority elsewhere. Zuggtmoy has attempted multiple times to establish portals from Shedakla directly into the Demonweb pits, seeking to create permanent routes through which she could send unlimited reinforcements. Each attempt has failed, but each one teaches her more about the web's defensive structure. She has learned to create spores that can survive in the void between layers, that can navigate the chaotic energies of the abyss without losing cohesion. These spores drift through the infinite realms, seeking any weak point in Lolth's defenses, any momentary gap through which they can slip and establish new infections. Lolth responds with constant vigilance and adaptation. She assigns powerful servants to patrol the outer regions of her web, hunting for any sign of fungal intrusion. She has developed spells and rituals specifically designed to detect Zuggtmoy's spores before they can take root. And she strikes back, sending expeditions into Shedakla to destroy fungal production facilities and kill the servants Zuggtmoy has assigned to the border regions. These raids are costly, often resulting in the complete loss of the raiding party, but they disrupt Zuggtmoy's operations and force her to divert resources to defense rather than offense. The power struggle between their forces extends beyond the abyss itself. Both demon queens maintain networks of cultists and servants throughout the material plane and other realities. When these networks come into conflict, when a cult of Zuggtmoy encounters agents of Lolth, the battles that result can devastate entire regions. Villages might be consumed by sudden fungal blooms, or find themselves host to spider infestations so severe that the entire population must flee or die. Forests become battlegrounds where Myconid warriors clash with drow hunting parties, neither side willing to concede territory to the other. You exist in a multiverse shaped by this conflict, The eternal war between Zuggtmoy and Lolth influences events at every level, from the cosmic to the personal. The abyss itself might be different if these two demon queens did not constantly push against each other. Their mutual antagonism creating a dynamic tension that shapes how other demon lords approach their own conflicts and alliances. And on mortal worlds, in the depths of the Underdark, and in the darkest forests of the surface, their proxies continue fighting battles that may have no ultimate victor, but will certainly have countless casualties. Section 4. Cults, corruption, and conflicting followers. The influence of demon queens extends far beyond their realms in the abyss. Their true power manifests not in the armies of demons they command, but in the mortal souls they corrupt, the civilizations they twist to serve their purposes, the cults that spread their influence across infinite realities. When you encounter a worshipper of Zuggtmoy or Lolth on the material plane, you are not simply facing a misguided individual who has chosen to follow evil. You are confronting the end result of corruption that may have taken generations to perfect. A person or community that has been carefully shaped through methods refined over millennia to serve purposes they may not even fully understand. The process by which mortals come to worship demon lords varies dramatically depending on the individual demon lord's nature and methods. Some demon lords offer immediate power to those who swear allegiance, granting abilities and strength in exchange for service. Others seduce through promises of forbidden knowledge or secret truths. But Zuggtmoy and Lolth employ more sophisticated approaches, methods that go beyond simple transactions of power for loyalty. They reshape their followers at fundamental levels, changing how they think, how they perceive reality, how they understand their place in the cosmos. Zuggtmoy's cults typically begin with a single spore. Not a physical spore necessarily, though those certainly play their role, but the seed of an idea. She whispers to those who walk in deep forests, those who tend mushroom gardens, those who study the natural processes of decay and renewal. Her message is seductive in its simplicity. Everything dies, everything decays. This is not a tragedy, but a transformation, a necessary stage in an eternal cycle. Why fight against this inevitability? Why not embrace it, work with it, become part of something greater than your individual existence? The early stages of corruption by Zuggtmoy feel almost benign. A gardener who begins following her teachings might simply develop a fascination with mushrooms, starting to cultivate unusual species, spending more time studying fungal growth patterns. A druid who hears her whispers might begin to see decomposition not as an ending, but as a beginning, the necessary precursor to new growth. These small shifts in perspective seem harmless, even healthy. After all, accepting death as natural is considered wisdom in many philosophies. But Zuggtmoy takes this acceptance further, twisting it into something darker. As the corruption deepens, her followers begin to see death not just as natural, but as desirable. They start to view complex societies and civilizations as aberrations that should be broken down and returned to simpler forms. They develop a hunger to speed along the process of decay, to transform living things into dead things that can become substrate for fungal growth. A cult of Zuggtmoy, in its middle stages, might sabotage food stores, introducing spores that cause rapid spoilage. They might poison wells with fungal toxins that sicken, but do not immediately kill, allowing the infection to spread before it is discovered. They work to undermine stability and permanence, viewing themselves as agents of necessary change. The final stages of corruption by Zuggtmoy result in individuals who have abandoned their original identities entirely. They see themselves not as separate beings, but as components of a greater organism, cells in the body of the demon queen of fungi. These ultimate cultists willingly accept physical transformation, allowing themselves to be infected with spores that will slowly convert their flesh into fungal matter. They experience this process as transcendence, a release from the isolation of individual consciousness into unity with something vast and ancient. The fact that this unity comes through the destruction of their original selves does not trouble them. They have been taught to see their individual existence as temporary and unimportant, a brief stage before the glorious transformation into something greater. Zuggtmoy's cults on the material plane often establish themselves in locations where fungal growth naturally thrives. Deep forests with rich soil and abundant moisture provide ideal environments. Cave systems where mushrooms grow in the darkness offer natural temples that require little modification. Abandoned buildings where mold and fungus have begun reclaiming human structures become shrines to decay and transformation. These locations serve as both meeting places and laboratories where cultists can experiment with different fungal species, cultivate spores for distribution, and initiate new members into the mysteries of decay. The hierarchy within cults of Zuggtmoy tends to be less rigid than in many other demon lord cults. Zuggtmoy sees individual identity as temporary, so rigid hierarchies based on personal achievement make little sense in her philosophy. Instead, her cults organize more like fungal colonies, with different members serving different functions based on their capabilities rather than their rank. Some cultists focus on cultivation and growth, tending the sacred fungi and ensuring optimal conditions for spore production. Others serve as spreaders, traveling to new locations to establish satellite colonies of the cult. Still, others act as defenders, protecting the cult's locations and eliminating threats. Leadership in Zuggtmoy's cults typically falls to those who have achieved the deepest communion with their demon queen. Individuals who can hear her whispers most clearly and interpret her will for the rest of the cult. These leaders may not appear particularly impressive by conventional standards. They might be elderly scholars who have spent decades studying mycology. They could be hermits who have lived alone in fungus-filled caves for so long that they have begun to merge with the fungal networks around them. What marks them as leaders is not personal charisma or political skill, but the depth of their corruption, the completeness of their transformation from individual beings into extensions of Zuggtmoy's consciousness. Notable servants of Zuggtmoy throughout history have included figures whose actions reveal the scope of her influence. In the world of Oerth, during the time when the temple of elemental evil stood at the height of its power, cultists worked to establish multiple points of fungal corruption throughout the region. The temple itself served as a nexus for various forms of elemental evil, with Zuggtmoy's influence intertwined with the worship of other dark powers. The operations there combined religious fervor with strategic planning, carefully targeting locations where fungal outbreaks would cause maximum disruption while being difficult to trace back to their source. Lolth's approach to corrupting mortals differs fundamentally from Zuggtmoy's methods. Where the demon queen of fungi offers dissolution of self into a greater collective, the spider queen promises elevation of self through domination of others. Her message appeals to ambition, to the desire for power and control, to the belief that some individuals are simply superior to others and deserve to rule. She does not ask her followers to abandon their identities. Instead, she tells them their true identities have been suppressed by weak societies that fear their strength, and she offers to help them claim the power they deserve. The Drow represent Lolth's most complete success in corrupting an entire race, but she maintains cults among surface races as well. These cults typically attract individuals who feel powerless or marginalized in their societies, people who believe they deserve more than they have received. Lolth whispers to them about the weakness of mercy, about how compassion is simply another word for failure to take what you desire. She offers them power, yes, but more importantly, she offers them permission to act on their darkest impulses without guilt or shame. She tells them that cruelty is not a vice, but a virtue, that domination is the natural order, and that those who possess strength have not just the right, but the obligation to use it. Early-stage corruption by Lolth often manifests as increasing ruthlessness in pursuit of goals. A merchant who begins following her might start using increasingly unethical methods to destroy competitors. A noble might become more tyrannical in exercising authority over subjects. A wizard might begin experimenting on unwilling subjects, justifying the cruelty as necessary for advancing knowledge. These behaviors can be rationalized as simply being pragmatic or realistic, making it easy for the corrupted individual to deny they have strayed from acceptable moral boundaries. As corruption deepens, Lolth's followers begin to actively worship her, conducting rituals and making sacrifices to gain her favor. These rituals often involve spiders, either as symbols or as actual participants. Cultists might keep spider breeding programs, carefully cultivating specific species and using them in their ceremonies. They might offer sacrifices to Lolth by wrapping victims in spider silk and leaving them to be consumed by the 8-legged servants of their goddess. They develop elaborate hierarchies within their cults, mimicking the structure of drow society, with priestesses holding ultimate authority and males serving in subordinate roles. The final stages of corruption by Lolth result in fanatical devotees who have structured their entire existence around serving her will. These individuals have typically committed acts so heinous that they cannot return to normal society, even if they wanted to. They have killed family members as sacrifices, betrayed friends and allies to prove their loyalty, participated in rituals that would see them executed if discovered. Their devotion to Lolth is absolute because they have burned every bridge that might have led them back to any other life. They serve her because they literally have nothing else. Their identities so completely bound to being her servants that removing that identity would leave nothing behind. Lolth's surface cults establish themselves in locations that provide secrecy and security. Underground chambers and cave systems are preferred, allowing cultists to create spaces that feel like the Underdark, even on the surface. Abandoned buildings in cities can serve as urban temples, their basements and sub-basements converted into shrines where spider motifs cover every surface. Wealthy cultists sometimes construct elaborate hidden temples beneath their estates, complete with traps and defenses designed to eliminate intruders before they can expose the cult's existence. The hierarchy in Lolth's cults is rigid and brutally enforced. She demands that her followers organize themselves according to strict principles of dominance and submission. Priestesses hold ultimate authority, their positions guaranteed by divine mandate and backed by the spells Lolth grants them. Below the priestesses come various ranks of servants, each one fighting constantly for advancement, each one willing to betray or destroy those above them if they believe they can succeed. This constant internal conflict is not a flaw in Lolth's system, but a feature she deliberately encourages. She wants her followers to be ruthless and ambitious, constantly testing each other, ensuring that only the strongest and most cunning survive to lead. When cults of Zuggtmoy encounter followers of Lolth, the resulting conflicts combine ideological opposition with the broader rivalry between their demon queens. From Zuggtmoy's perspective, Lolth's ordered hierarchies and structured societies represent exactly the kind of complexity that should be broken down and returned to simpler forms. Lolth civilizations, whether drow cities in the Underdark or surface cults organized along drow principles, are targets for fungal corruption. Zuggtmoy's followers see the destruction of these ordered systems as serving their goddess's will. Each Lolth cult they destroy or corrupt a victory for decay over false permanence. From Lolth's perspective, Zuggtmoy's cults represent chaos and dissolution, everything she has worked to overcome through building civilization and enforcing order. The fungal cults threaten not just Lolth's immediate interests, but her entire philosophy of domination through control. How can you control something that refuses to maintain a stable form? How can you dominate something that sees its own destruction as desirable? Zuggtmoy's followers cannot be ruled through the methods Lolth prefers. They must be destroyed completely, purged with fire and acid to ensure no spore survives to spread infection. The practical conflicts between these cults take many forms. In the Underdark, where both demon queens maintain significant presence through their followers, territory disputed by their cults can become death traps for any who enter. A cave system might be claimed by a cult of Zuggtmoy, who have filled it with aggressive fungi that attack intruders. Lolth's followers assault this position, using fire and divine magic to burn away the fungal growth and claim the caves for themselves. But Zuggtmoy's cultists retreat deeper into the cave system, leaving behind spores that will regrow after the attack passes. The followers of Lolth establish fortifications and begin building more permanent structures, only to find that the fungi regrow around and beneath their construction, slowly undermining foundations and infesting walls. On the surface, conflicts between these cults often play out in forests and other natural environments where both have reason to establish presence. A forest might contain a myconid colony that Zuggtmoy's cultists are attempting to corrupt and recruit. Lolth's followers attack the myconids, not because the mushroom folk pose any threat to their immediate interests, but simply to deny them to Zuggt. The myconids, peaceful by nature and unprepared for such violence, are slaughtered or scattered, but the fungal networks beneath the forest remain. And Zuggtmoy's cultists use these networks to stage ambushes against their attackers, striking from below, where they least expect resistance. Urban environments present unique challenges for both cults. Cities typically have authorities dedicated to rooting out demon worship and destroying cults when they are discovered. This forces both Zuggtmoy's and Lolth's followers to operate carefully, maintaining secrecy and avoiding actions that would draw attention from city guards or adventurers. But when cults of both demon queens establish themselves in the same city, the temptation to strike at each other often overcomes caution. The resulting conflicts can be catastrophic for the mortal population caught in the middle. These battles typically unfold in the shadows, in sewers and abandoned buildings, in districts where authorities have limited reach. A cult of Zuggtmoy might establish operations in the sewers beneath a merchant district, using the damp darkness to cultivate vast quantities of fungi. Their plans might involve releasing massive quantities of spores during a major festival, intending to infect thousands simultaneously and create chaos. A cult of Lolth operating in the same area, discovering these plans, sees an opportunity to strike at their demon queen's rival, while also advancing their own position. The battle that results plays out in darkness beneath the city, with neither side willing to retreat or seek outside help. Fungal creatures fight against warriors trained in drow methods and summoned spiders. Spores fill the air in toxic clouds, while spider venom and acid eat away at fungal flesh. By the time such conflicts end, both cults are often effectively destroyed, their surviving members scattered or killed, but the locations themselves become contaminated. So thoroughly infected with spores and spider eggs that entire sections must be sealed and abandoned. The methods each cult uses to recruit new members reflect their demon queen's different philosophies. Zuggtmoy's cults often recruit through seemingly benign entry points. They might present themselves as communities interested in natural living or sustainable agriculture. They attract people interested in herbalism or alternative medicine. They offer knowledge about mushroom cultivation that has legitimate practical value. Only gradually do they introduce the darker aspects of their faith, the worship of decay, and the embrace of transformation. By the time new recruits realize the full nature of what they have joined, they are often already too corrupted to turn back. Lolth's cults recruit through promises of power and advancement. They target ambitious individuals who feel thwarted by their society's limitations. They offer secret knowledge, dark magic, and connections to powerful figures. They create networks of mutual obligation and shared guilt, ensuring that once someone joins and participates in even minor cult activities, they become complicit in ways that prevent them from leaving or betraying the group. The cult becomes a shadow society parallel to the legitimate one, offering its own rewards and punishments, its own hierarchy and advancement paths. The competition for recruits between these cults can become personal and vicious. An individual who shows potential as a follower of demon lords might find themselves courted by both cults simultaneously, each one trying to convert them before the other succeeds. These recruitment battles sometimes result in the potential recruit's death, killed by one cult to prevent the other from gaining them. Other times, the individual plays the cults against each other, accepting gifts and knowledge from both while committing to neither. A dangerous game that usually ends badly when one or both cults realize they are being manipulated. You live in a world where these cults operate in shadows, where individuals you interact with daily might secretly worship demon queens, whose goals include your corruption or destruction. The merchant who sells you supplies might be a cultist of Zuggtmoy, subtly introducing spores into goods to spread infection. The noble who governs your region might secretly answer to Lolth, using their authority to advance the Spider Queen's interests while maintaining a facade of legitimate rule. And when these cults come into conflict, when followers of fungus battle worshippers of spiders, entire communities can be caught in the crossfire, destroyed by forces they never knew existed. and whose purposes they could not hope to understand. Section 5. The eternal struggle implications and the future. The question arises inevitably when you study the conflict between Zuggtmoy and Lolth. Why, after millennia of warfare, does neither demon queen achieve final victory? They are both beings of immense power, commanders of vast armies, wielders of abilities that could shatter worlds. Surely, one should have gained decisive advantage by now, should have found a way to destroy or permanently subjugate the other. Yet the war continues, endless and unresolved. A conflict that has persisted since before recorded history and shows no signs of conclusion. The answer to this question reveals fundamental truths about the nature of the abyss, the limitations of even demon lords, and the role these eternal conflicts play in the structure of the multiverse itself. Demon lords, despite their immense power, cannot truly be destroyed through conventional means. They are not simply powerful creatures that can be killed like dragons or giants. They are fundamental expressions of specific types of evil, concepts made manifest and given form. Zuggtmoy is decay incarnate, the principle of transformation through decomposition, given consciousness and will. As long as anything in the multiverse dies and rots, as long as fungi grow and break down organic matter, Zuggtmoy exists. You could destroy her physical form, could shatter the body she manifests in Shedakla, but she would reform, reconstituting herself from the fungal networks that exist across infinite realities. Perhaps weakened temporarily, but ultimately unchanged in her essential nature. Lolth presents similar difficulties for any who would seek her permanent destruction. She is not merely a goddess who fell into the abyss. She is ambition personified, the desire for power and control made into a living entity. She is the urge to dominate, to scheme, to rise above others through whatever means necessary. As long as creatures exist who hunger for power over their fellows, as long as hierarchies form and individuals strive for position within them, Lolth persists. Her form could be destroyed. Her realm in the Demonweb pits could be invaded and conquered. But the concept she represents would endure, and from that concept, she would eventually return. This immortality comes with limitations. While demon lords cannot be permanently killed in most circumstances, they can be significantly weakened or temporarily banished. Destroying a demon lord's physical form in their home realm forces them to spend centuries or even millennia reforming, during which time their power and influence are greatly diminished, trapping a demon lord, binding them with powerful magic, or imprisoning them in specially prepared prisons, can remove them from active participation in events for extended periods, and demon lords can be wounded in ways that take ages to heal. Their power depleted through major defeats or successful strikes against their core interests. The eternal nature of their conflict means that neither Zuggtmoy nor Lolth can risk the kind of all-out assault that might lead to their own temporary destruction. If Zuggtmoy gathered all her forces and launched a massive invasion of the Demonweb pits, she might achieve significant victories, but such an invasion would leave Shedakla vulnerable to counterattack, either from Lolth's forces or from other demon lords who would see an opportunity to claim territory. While Zuggtmoy was distracted, Juiblix, who already shares her lair, would certainly seize the opportunity to expand his domain. And if the invasion failed, if Lolth managed to destroy Zuggtmoy's manifested form, the demon queen of fungi would spend millennia reforming, while her rivals carved up her realm and scattered her servants. Lolth faces the same strategic calculations. She could attempt to assault Shedakla with overwhelming force, using her vast armies of drow and demons to invade the fungal realm and destroy its infrastructure. But such an assault would require pulling forces from her other operations, weakening her position in the Underdark, leaving her surface cults vulnerable, creating opportunities for her many enemies to strike. The Spider Queen has more enemies than just Zuggtmoy. Other demon lords resent her power. Surface deities would love to see her weakened. Rival goddesses of the Drow pantheon, particularly Illustree, wait for any opportunity to reclaim followers from her grasp. An all-out assault on Zuggtmoy might succeed, but the cost could be catastrophic for Lolth's broader interests. The balance between them is maintained partially through mutual awareness of these risks. Both demon queens understand that destroying the other, even temporarily, would require them to commit resources and take risks that could leave them vulnerable to third parties. So instead, they fight a war of attrition, constant skirmishing and proxy conflicts that weaken their rival without exposing themselves to catastrophic risk. They accept that neither will achieve total victory because the alternative, the gamble required to attempt such victory, carries too high a price. But there is another factor that maintains the balance between them, one that goes beyond strategic calculation. The multiverse itself may require their conflict to continue. The abyss is infinite chaos, but that chaos is not random or without structure. Different demon lords represent different aspects of evil, different expressions of corruption and destruction. Their conflicts with each other create a kind of ecology of evil, a system where different forms of wickedness compete and balance each other. If one form of evil became too dominant, if one demon lord achieved absolute supremacy over all others, the result might be a concentration of power that could threaten the fundamental structure of reality itself. Zuggtmoy and Lolth, despite being enemies, serve complementary roles in this cosmic ecology. Zuggtmoy represents the inevitability of decay, the breaking down of complex systems into simpler ones. She is entropy as an active force, transformation through destruction. Lolth represents the building of hierarchies, the organization of chaos into ordered systems of dominance and control. She is complexity arising from ambition, structure built on cruelty. These two forces oppose each other, but they also balance each other. Zuggtmoy prevents Lolth's hierarchies from becoming permanent and unchanging. Lolth prevents Zuggtmoy's decay from reducing everything to uniform simplicity. Together, they create a dynamic tension that allows for constant change without either stagnation or complete dissolution. The impact of their rivalry extends far beyond the abyss. On the material plane, in the countless worlds where mortals live and die, the conflict between these demon queens shapes events in ways both obvious and subtle. The most visible impacts come from their direct followers, the cults that wage war in their names, the drow cities that exist as bastions of Lolth's power, the fungal blights that spread wherever Zuggtmoy's influence takes hold. But the subtle influences may be more profound and more dangerous. Every time a civilization begins to calcify, to become too rigid in its structures and hierarchies, Zuggtmoy's influence grows stronger. The spores of change drift through such societies, finding purchase in the cracks between what is and what could be. Rebels and revolutionaries, even those who have never heard of the demon queen of fungi, sometimes serve her purposes by breaking down established orders. Not all change serves Zuggtmoy's interests. She specifically seeks transformation through decay, the reduction of complexity to simplicity. But any force that undermines stability and permanence creates opportunities for her influence to spread. Conversely, whenever chaos threatens to overwhelm a society, whenever disorder reaches levels that threaten complete collapse, Lolth's influence strengthens. The desire for order, even cruel order, becomes attractive when the alternative is anarchic violence. Tyrants who establish brutal hierarchies, who create systems of domination that at least provide predictability and structure, sometimes unknowingly serve the Spider Queen's interests. Lolth does not require her followers to be consciously working toward her goals. Anyone who builds hierarchies based on power and fear, who creates systems where the strong dominate the weak, advances her vision regardless of whether they worship her. The competition between these influences creates a kind of oscillation in civilizations and societies. Periods of rigid order give way to revolutionary change. Times of chaos are followed by the imposition of new hierarchies. This cycle is natural and would occur without demonic influence. But Zuggtmoy and Lolth amplify the extremes, pushing societies toward more complete decay or more absolute tyranny than would naturally occur. A revolution that might have resulted in moderate reforms becomes instead a complete dissolution of social structures. A restoration of order that might have established reasonable governance becomes instead a reign of terror and absolute control. For adventurers and heroes who find themselves caught in the conflict between these demon queens, understanding the nature of their rivalry provides crucial strategic advantages. You cannot simply choose to avoid involvement. If you adventure in the Underdark, you will encounter Lolth's influence. If you explore deep forests or investigate mysterious diseases, you may stumble into Zuggtmoy's plots, but understanding their relationship to each other, knowing how they think and what they desire, allows you to predict their actions and potentially exploit their mutual antagonism. When facing cultists of Zuggtmoy, remember that they see themselves as agents of inevitable change. They believe they are working with natural forces, helping along processes that would occur anyway given enough time. This belief makes them patient and persistent. They will accept temporary defeats because they understand their cause will ultimately triumph. But it also makes them vulnerable to being outmaneuvered by faster-moving opponents. If you can act decisively, can respond to fungal threats with immediate and overwhelming force, you can destroy their operations before they have time to adapt. When confronting followers of Lolth, understand that they are driven by ambition and the desire for power. They serve the Spider Queen because they believe she offers them the best path to achieving dominance over others. This makes them dangerous and ruthless, willing to betray allies and sacrifice innocents to advance their positions. But it also makes them susceptible to manipulation through their own ambition, create opportunities for internal conflict within their organizations, suggest to lower-ranking members that their superiors are weak or vulnerable, sow distrust and paranoia, turning Lolth's own methods against her followers. The most dangerous situations arise when you find yourself between the two Demon Queen's forces, caught in crossfire between their proxies. In such situations, the temptation might be to ally with one side against the other, to accept temporary assistance from followers of Zuggtmoy in fighting Drow, or to work with Lolth's agents in purging a fungal infestation. Resist this temptation. Neither Demon Queen is less evil than the other. Neither deserves your aid or trust. Allying with servants of one demon lord to fight servants of another is trading one form of evil for another, and you will inevitably find that the ally you accepted becomes the enemy you must later confront. Instead, seek to turn their conflict against both of them. If you discover that both a cult of Zuggtmoy and followers of Lolth exist in the same region, find ways to ensure they become aware of each other. Leak information that will prompt them to attack each other. Create false evidence, suggesting that one side is stronger or weaker than it actually is, provoking premature attacks that leave both sides vulnerable. Allow them to destroy each other. Then move in to clean up the survivors and prevent either from reestablishing themselves. The larger cosmic implications of the Zuggtmoy-Lolth rivalry should inform how you approach conflicts with demon lords in general. These beings are not simply powerful enemies to be defeated through superior force. They are fundamental aspects of evil woven into the fabric of reality. You cannot end evil by killing demon lords, but you can weaken their influence, can limit their ability to corrupt the material plane, can prevent their most catastrophic plans from coming to fruition. every cult you disrupt, every corrupted individual you redeem, every plot you uncover and prevent represents a small but significant victory in a war that may have no final ending. The relationship between mortal civilizations and these demon queens is complex and often paradoxical. The Drow civilization built by Lolth has achieved remarkable things despite its evil nature. Drow magic is sophisticated and powerful. Their architecture is beautiful in its dark way. Their survival in the hostile environment of the Underdark for thousands of years demonstrates impressive resilience and adaptability. But all of this achievement is built on a foundation of cruelty and suffering. The Drow maintain their civilization through slavery, through constant internal conflict, through the oppression of half their population based on gender. The price of their accomplishments is measured in countless lives destroyed, countless souls corrupted beyond redemption. Similarly, Zuggtmoy's influence on natural systems can have effects that superficially appear neutral or even beneficial. Fungi do perform essential ecological functions. They break down dead matter and return nutrients to soil. They form symbiotic relationships with plants that help forests thrive. Myconid colonies in the Underdark can be peaceful neighbors, trading fairly and avoiding conflict. But Zuggtmoy represents these processes taken to a horrifying extreme. Decay accelerated beyond natural bounds. Transformation without consent. The reduction of all complexity to fungal simplicity. What appears beneficial about fungal ecology becomes monstrous when directed by demonic will. You must maintain this understanding when confronting the influence of these demon queens. Do not be seduced by partial truths or seemingly reasonable arguments their followers might present. The cultist of Zuggtmoy, who argues they are simply accepting natural processes, is distorting truth in service to evil. The follower of Lolth, who claims their methods are merely pursuing strength and efficiency, is justifying cruelty with philosophy. Neither demon queen offers anything worth having. Neither deserves compromise or understanding. They are evil in its purest form and must be opposed without reservation or regret. The future of the conflict between Zuggtmoy and Lolth is impossible to predict with certainty, but certain patterns seem likely to continue. They will keep fighting their proxy wars through mortal followers. They will continue to seek advantage through corruption and infiltration. They will maintain their eternal standoff in the abyss, neither able to destroy the other, neither willing to make peace. And mortals will continue to be caught in the middle, suffering the consequences of a war they did not start and cannot end. But you are not powerless in this conflict. Every time you cleanse a fungal infestation, you push back against Zuggtmoy's influence. Every time you free slaves from Drow raiders or disrupt a cult of Lolth, you weaken the Spider Queen's power. These victories may seem small against the cosmic scale of their rivalry, but they matter. They matter to the individuals you save, to the communities you protect, to the small corners of reality you keep free from demonic corruption. The war between demon queens serves as a reminder that evil is not monolithic. It takes many forms, pursues different goals, follows different methods. Zuggtmoy and Lolth represent very different approaches to corruption and destruction. Understanding these differences, recognizing the specific nature of the evil you face, allows you to fight more effectively. Generic approaches to combating evil may fail when confronting enemies whose nature you do not understand. But knowledge is power, and the knowledge you have gained here, the understanding of these demon queens and their eternal struggle, makes you more dangerous to their interests. As you continue your adventures, as you delve into the Underdark or explore ancient forests, as you investigate mysterious diseases or confront tyrannical regimes, remember what you have learned. Look for the signs of demonic influence. Be alert to the subtle corruptions that precede obvious threats. And never forget that the greatest victory is not simply defeating an enemy, but understanding them well enough to prevent them from returning. The rivalry between Zuggtmoy, demon queen of fungi, and Lolth, the spider queen, will outlast your life and the lives of your descendants for countless generations. It is a conflict woven into the fundamental structure of evil itself, a war that may continue until the end of time. But that does not mean you should despair or give up the fight. Every battle matters. Every soul saved from corruption makes the multiverse a little brighter. And every plot disrupted, every cult destroyed, every victory, however small, proves that mortals are not helpless against the power of demon lords. You stand now as a guardian against the darkness, armed with knowledge that most will never possess. The secrets of the demon queens are yours. Use them wisely. Use them well, and never stop fighting for the light, no matter how deep the shadows grow. If you found this deep dive into the eternal war between Zuggtmoy and Lolth enlightening, if you discovered something new about the demon queens and their cosmic struggle, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us continue exploring the deepest lore of Dungeons and Dragons, uncovering the secrets that shape the multiverse, and revealing the truths behind the most powerful beings in existence. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you encountered followers of these demon queens in your campaigns? How did you handle the discovery of their plots? What other demon lords would you like us to explore in future videos? The community you build here makes this channel what it is, and your engagement and enthusiasm inspire us to keep delving deeper into the lore. Thank you for watching, and may your adventures lead you through darkness into light.